to share
Yeah.
with us a six-part framework for agent attraction that's caused you so much success and growth in this company. So let's see it.
No, I appreciate that. So let me, guys, I'll just take like 15 minutes to share this with you. And then if there's questions afterward, we'll go over it. If there's questions during, we'll go over it. And if not, we'll just, we'll talk next week. Um, before I even share the framework, let me just share this principle, these two principles that we have to ask ourselves. Aim, can you see my screen?
Sure can. Yeah.
Okay. So the two questions you have to ask yourself before you get into agent attraction is number one, who do I have a relationship of trust with? And number two, who believes me to be a competent business practitioner? And I want to share with you why that's so important. Um, it's really hard from scratch to, I mean, think about the move that someone's making to come to real. There's three levels of risk when it comes to this move. Number one, someone who does nothing is a very easy move. Like there are agents in your marketplace who have not done a deal in a year who literally will move today. Like there's just very low risk for them. Um, they don't have anything in escrow. They're probably pissed because it's never their fault, it's their broker's fault. Like they can just move today. Level two is an agent that is in production that probably is happy with where they are. They have deals in escrow. And so there's that, as I think Ron was talking about, like there's that complication of like, well, what happens to my deals if I leave? What how does it affect my business? Like I actually like my team leader or I like my broker. Like, can I preserve that relationship? So it's really hard. Pain is a greater motivator than pleasure, believe it or not. Um, I'm a big
Mhm.
U2 fan, and they wrote a song, and one of the lines in the song is talking about gambling. Like everybody knows that to lose is what you're really there for. And what Bono was doing was identifying that, like compulsive gamblers, it's not about chasing win. It's almost like they're addicted to the feeling of losing. And so it's like that feeling of losing is a greater motivator than the pursuit of pleasure. So we're dealing with somebody who like we create a more pleasurable world for, but unless they're experiencing significant pain in their business, it's hard for them to justify a move. And then number three is the big team leader, the brokerage owner. So now we're dealing with contract issues, we're dealing with non-compete issues, we're dealing with like really big moves. And so what helps in all of those three things is the trust and competency basis for our relationship. So let me just talk really quick about the difference between the two. Trust is intention based, it's integrity based. It's, I've known, like when I called Amy 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago to talk to her about Real, I knew there was trust there because we had been working together for 10 years. We had talked about family issues, we had talked about business issues. Like I had never sold her anything, she had never sold me anything. So it was just like a relationship where I think we both knew that we were people that we could trust, that our intentions were always above board. There was never a time where I called her and I was like, "Hey, Aim, like I got this like, magic potion that's going to fix your business. Like it's only 4.95 or whatever." There was just never that experience. And so like I think Amy knew when I called her and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a partner up in Toronto. Who do you know that may be open to a new idea?" It wasn't like calling her for the 37th time to sell her on something. So competency is a little bit different. We see in our marketplace personal injury attorneys. If you come to Vegas, every billboard is either a strip club or a personal injury attorney. That's like or sometimes casinos. Like that's the only thing on the billboards. And so the way personal injury attorneys do it in Las Vegas is they just say like billions recovered or congratulations to Susie. We just got her $250,000. And so like, while attorneys, specifically personal injury attorneys, are like the least trusted profession of them all, what they're trying to do with that billboard is out competency any trust issues, meaning I'm so good at what I do that even if you don't trust the profession, you know that I'm so good at what I do. So anytime we're creating content, we're, whether we know it or not, unless we're getting into validation issues, which Ben Kinney talked about last week, we're literally either trying to say, hey, I'm Joe, I'm somebody you could trust, or hey, I'm Joe, I'm somebody who's competent. Now, if you do this right from an emotional intelligence standpoint, you're going to know going into a call, hey, we really don't have a relationship, so they probably don't trust me yet, but they know enough about me to know that I'm competent in business. Or you just have a personal relationship with somebody to where they're like, I mean, there's people in my world that I'm just friends with from golf or church or whatever, that they're just like, they don't know what type of business I run. They don't know anything about, I mean, they probably know that I'm somewhat successful just because of just like our experiences and, we travel together or whatever, but they don't know anything about the real estate world. And so they maybe want to get into real estate. And it's like, we trust Joe, but we don't know if he's competent yet. So, not to spend too much time on this, but this is a question you have to ask yourself every time you think about attraction is, if I text Ron, does Ron trust me, or does he believe I'm competent, and or hopefully both? And whichever one I don't have is the one I need to establish. So if Ron's like, hey man, I know you're killing it, blah, 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 blah. I know you're killing it is a statement of saying, I know you're competent. So then what I have to work on is establishing a relationship of trust. So then much of my verbiage is going to be like, hey man, I'm not going to sell you anything. To be honest, this may not work for you, yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden I'm building up trust score with him because he's like, all right, this guy's not going to snake oil sales me. But if it's a relationship of trust, like Amy, I don't know about you, but I would say like when I called you, you were like, hey, Joe, I trust you, but I don't even know how competent this business decision was for you with Real. Tell me what you got going on. And so it was like we had that trust, and I had to earn the competency score, where with some people, we have competency, but we have to earn trust. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think because it was you though, I already had the trust and the competency with you, or like I felt that you already
Probably.
had that with me. It was just having to get that about the brokerage. So
So our introduction to Real was different in that our coach, a Keller Williams guy by the name of Brett Tanner, is somebody I know is immensely competent. But if I'm being honest, and if you guys know Brett, don't sell me out on this. Taylor and I saying is always like, Brett's just going to Brett, which means like Brett will always do what's best for Brett. So when Brett introduced, I've said Brett like 30 times in 5 seconds. When he introduced us to Real, it was like, we know he's competent. So let's dig in and see if this is for us, because it's not that we don't trust him, but he's always going to do what's best for him. So this must be great for him. Now let's figure out if it's good for us. All right. I've spent enough time on this, but guys, this is a principle you really got to geek out on. And going back to Lori's comment, what she did over these 30 days was establish trust and competency with people. So now this is the power of events. This is the power of programs. This is the power of giving back to your community. Sasha talked about it. I've been giving back to my community for 15 years. So people trust her and they believe she's competent in her community. Well, once you have that, then we get into this framework I've built. I'm going to share the link in the chat at the end here. But this literally, if I was you guys, I would just print this out. If you like it, you can modify it and do whatever you want with it. But I would just have this on my desk if I'm doing a Zoom, and I would go 1 through 6 here. So let me just kind of walk you through this really quick, and then I'll pop it in the chat. And then if you guys have any questions, happy to go over it. All right. So I follow these 6 steps. So I would say, hey, Jamie, tell me a little bit about how you ended up at Remax. Like, well, first of all, how'd you end up in real estate? And then how did you end up at Remax? So she would start saying, well, my mom was a Remax agent, and Remax is huge in my marketplace. And like Dave Liniger would come and he would speak all the time. And so it was just like Remax was this giant. We used to take hot air balloon rides when I was a kid, and all my friends used to think it was rad. And so it just became natural that like when I became a realtor, I chose Remax. So the whole time I'm writing down, mom was with Remax, hot air balloon, like, right? And so you're just writing this stuff down. So then the question you ask yourself is like, A, if you don't really know them, you got to get to know them. So be like, well, Jamie, tell me about, before we get into the business stuff, tell me about like your like family, kids, Like, tell me who you are a little bit, right? And then tell me where you are, and then tell me how you got there. Those are like the three questions. If you already know who they are, you could skip it. If you know where they are, then you would want to know how. How is probably the most important question in this, is because it's like then you get to the decision making process in all of this. Now, going from step one to step two is always a validation movement. And what I mean by that is, Jamie, it seems like you made a great decision. Like your mom's a great business practitioner. You've obviously built something awesome at Remax. So like good on you. Like great decision to go there. I would always build the bridge of positivity. We in real estate have a tendency to build a bridge of negativity. Think about it. When we go look at somebody's house, we're like, all right, Nestor, Michelle, this place looks rad. Just so I'm prepared, tell me all the problems with this place. Like which bathrooms smell like pee? Where's the water damage? Where did your dog scratch the carpet? Right? It's like, why would I want their experience with me to be one of embarrassment? So even if I go to a listing, which I haven't done in like 20 years, but if I did, be like, Nestor, Michelle, tell me the three things you love about this the most. So you may say to Jamie, Jamie, tell me the three things you love the most about the decision you made to go to Remax. Boom, boom, boom. And then at the end, I'm like, all right, well, let's get into the present. I wouldn't say that because I would have it in front of me, but I'm like, Jamie, you made a great decision. Like, good job. I can tell you're somebody who just makes good decisions. How is it going now? Like, give me an idea of maybe some of the things that are working really well and some of the things that could be going better that possibly led to this conversation. I'm not giving information about anything. I'm giving feedback, emotional feedback, like I'm telling her how awesome she is. Now I'm going, well, how's it going? Okay, you love your broker. You don't go into the office. You feel like you want more collaboration outside of your company. You feel like you're sending a lot of referrals places and you don't even have any agents to refer to. You feel like you're kind of stuck and you need some additional inspiration. You feel like you've outgrown your little fishbowl of a real estate company you're in because you're seeing everybody else doing bigger things, right? And so it's like all I'm doing is writing things down, and I'm like, dude, to be honest with you, Jamie, I felt so many of those same things myself. Again, validating her experience. Now I'm going to go like, all right, well, let's do this for me. Pretend you're Picasso and just paint me a picture of the future. Like ideally, 3 years, 5 years from now, what does your world look like? What does your business look like? What does your schedule look like? What does your retirement plan look like? Like paint a picture for me of what an ideal future would look like for you. Notes, 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 notes. Then I move on to number 4. And if I haven't gathered enough information on steps 1, 2, and 3 to utter the word, and I keep picking on her, but I'm like, hey, Jamie, because you said, if I can't say that, then I've got to go back. And I may have to go all the way back to the past. Hey, really quick, I did have a question, yada, yada, yada. Like I may go present, like really quick, help me understand the fee structure of where you are currently. Like I may have some additional questions before I could get to because you said. And in here, it just says paint a picture of the world you can help them create or someone you know that has already created what they want. So here, the reason I have phrase number 2 on there is you may be talking above your skis. Like what I mean by that is if I'm a solo agent, I do, 20 deals a year. I'm not elite. I don't run a team. I haven't transitioned to brokerage. I may be like shooting above myself. So then what I may say is like, well, let me tell you about Tracy Barber, a buddy of mine who transitioned his whole brokerage over in Boston. You know what I mean? Like I may have to point to somebody who's done something bigger than what I did to just say, hey, because you mentioned this, let me tell you about my buddy so-and-so who kind of was dealing with some of the same issues. So they paint a picture in box number 3. I paint a picture in box number 4. So I'm like, hey, Jamie, imagine a world in which you blah, 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 blah. And it's like the greatest, right? So if somebody goes like, hey, I've never been to Disneyland, and I'm like, holy crap, Sasha, imagine you go to this place and it's like spotless, everything's clean. I know how much cleanliness means to you. Like there's not a piece of trash to be found. And you get churros. Did you know these churros are only 130 calories? Like, I know you're healthy. Like, imagine pounding a couple of those suckers and knowing that within the next half hour, you're going to walk the calories off. And like, you're just like painting this picture of just the greatest thing ever for them. So it's like, hey, you paint a picture for me in box number 3. I'm going to paint a picture in box number 4. So row number 1 is ask and learn. Row number 2 is share and inspire. So once I've painted that picture, then I would have a knowledge that everybody wants to be guided. Like, if you get done with 4 and you're like, I don't know where to go from here, you're probably in trouble. So now there's step number 5 is always probably going to be a introduction. It's probably always going to be some documents you're sending over. It's probably always going to be a video. It's the here's what happens next. Like, hey, Ron, here's what I'm going to do next, man. I told you about my friend Amy. She came from KW. You're coming from KW. Like, let me just make that introduction because I think as much as I understand kind of the complexities of leaving a marketplace and all that fun stuff, she absolutely knows. So let me reach out to Amy. I'm going to put the 3 of us on a group text. And then number 5, that I took this from Sharon and Amy pointed it out to me. Bam, fam, book a meeting from a meeting. So I'm going to be like, Ron, let me do this. I'm going to set up a text thread with you and Amy. I don't know her schedule. So give me a couple of times next week, Tuesday, Thursday type thing, that you are available so that when we get that text thread going, we just already have these 2 appointments booked, and then Amy can just pick what works best for her. So just like with a lead we're working, we never want to go without a future follow-up. So it's like, because you said I paint a picture, here's what happens next, a moment of action, and then concreting in a future plan so that they have something to look forward to. Questions, comments, concerns, smart remarks. Let me grab this link. Aim, did I miss anything?
No, it's good. The one thing that I was thinking about, even while you were talking about it, because I know I still struggle with it, is and you don't have your screen up, so the point won't isn't going to come to me. But
Do you want me to put it back up?
well, when you're trying to bring a correlation with somebody else, like when you were talking about the point of, because you said this and you're painting a picture, like when you used Ron and I as an example, we both came from KW and there was a correlation there. It's like sometimes it's hard in the moment, and it also depends on how many conversations you've had to know those examples. And so that's why too, it's really important to get to know other people, like in settings like this. Like, we should share more about our stories and examples of how we came to Real and why we came to Real and where we came from, so that we can all use them as in our attraction conversations. It's kind of like when you run a real estate team, and I have an agent who joins our team and they haven't done any business, but I remind them, like, all of our team's listings and all of our deals are yours to celebrate and to promote and to advertise as well. So the stories that are working and the examples that people have gone through, even on the screen, and others that leverage them. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, let's talk about the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is you don't point directly to someone who is your quote unquote sponsor at Real, but you point to somebody who you know is a great connector and maybe a great mentor, and you get co-sponsorship. Like, Amy, you and I have gotten very nebulous with this. We're like, dude, let's just help as many people as we possibly can. And the worst case scenario is we're going to have thousands and thousands of co-sponsored agents. Like, that's the worst case scenario. And like, we're totally fine with that. And I love that you pointed that out, because that's what water cooler is meant to be. Jamie shared her story. Now you guys know, like, she's got her own office. She just transitioned from Remax, right? Like, so then you're talking to somebody from Remax who has an office or wants an office. You're like, dude, I've got to introduce you to Jamie, because I was just on a call with her and her story is so inspirational. Let me put us on a group text, and then, hey, Tuesday or Thursday, like, do you have any spots there that we can, and so then it's just so simple. Erica.
Well, and even if it's not, even if it's not necessarily a co-sponsorship opportunity, I mean, that would be the best case scenario if that's what's best for the agent, but at least you know Jamie's story, so you can use it as an example. Co-sponsorship might make sense in that situation, but it might also not, but at least you know the story and you can reference it.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be an introduction. It has to at least be an informational thing.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, I know this person. So Erica asked, does this work for new agents too? It's a lot of questions that you do and maybe don't know to do. So it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. So I may just be like, hey, Anthony, you're getting into real estate, man. Like, what led to this decision? Like, what career are you coming from? Like, if they're brand new, like we try to use this framework on our team. Like, what got you into real estate? And they're like, oh, I'm tired of stripping and I've got arthritis, anyways, from dealing blackjack or whatever it is, right? Like, and it's like, all right, cool.
So
Like,
we in Toronto never have conversations about I'm tired of stripping.
dude, I promise you a decent percentage. I would estimate 15% of the real estate population in Las Vegas either Valley Parks cars, deals blackjack, or strips. Decent percentage. So then I'm like, well, what got you into real estate, right? Like, why are you choosing this as your profession? What are you doing right now? What's the positives and maybe some of the things that can improve? Well, paint a picture for me. Like, what's our getting you out of, dude, I'll tell you, like in Vegas, cocktail waitressing, like there's a big drug culture. It's like a problem. And so it's like, there are a lot of people who are great customer service people, really good salespeople, but they're like, man, how do I get away from, and these are just our Vegas-based issues. But to your question, Erica, like if somebody's brand new, I'm going to walk them through the same thing and it may be quick. Like if I'm you guys, improve upon this. I'm not saying that this is, as Kim Kardashian would say, Bible. I'm just saying like, get to know these principles so that as you're having these conversations, it's like, well, Cheryl, tell me a little bit about like how you got into real estate and why you chose that company. Well, how's it going? Like, give me a couple of goods and a couple of could be betters. I would never say bads. Give me a couple of goods, a couple of could be betters. Well, give me an idea of what your world looks like in 3 to 5 years, and let me see if I can help you achieve that. Wow. Okay, cool. Well, Cheryl, imagine boom, 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 boom. Now here's what happens next. I'm going to, share this share the slides I've showed you, or I'm going to send you this YouTube video that I think really answers the question you have. How's Tuesday or Thursday next week to kind of reconnect after you've had some time to digest this, right? So any other questions, comments, concerns, smart remarks? I think I shared the link to the Canva there. Feel free to take it, improve upon it. Make a copy of it before you start editing it so that everybody doesn't do the same. You may not like the colors. You may not like the type set I used. This is meant to be printed out, put on your desk. To be honest, I would even geek out enough to just have a presentation in which it's like a slide up that is just like, tell me about you. How did you end up where you are? Like up on the screen. Next. What are 3 things you love about your current situation? What are 3 things you wish could be better? Next screen. Like paint a picture of your, like a stormy night's dream or a summer night's dream up there. Just like paint a picture for me. What does your future look like? You may use that type of framework. There is something that happens though when you're taking notes during a meeting that makes people feel like you're engaged. It makes people feel like you really care. So even if you're not using this as a sheet, you may just have a blank piece of paper and you may just go past, present, future, me paint a picture, here's what happens next, bam, fam. And like, so you just have that down there and you're learning about them. So I enjoy this framework. I'm sure you guys could do it better, but I just wanted to get this to you just in case you're having some meetings where you're like, dude, because if you're anything like me, the easiest thing for you to do is just word vomit your own thoughts, ideas, and beliefs on people, and then just hope that they agree with you. And that's just the wrong way to do things. I think getting the information from them is so much more important. I hope you're finding value in the content you've been consuming, and my goal is to earn your subscription. So subscribe down below so that you get notified when we drop new content every single week.